everyone, my name is Agudelo, and my thesis is named Voices of Strength. This thesis focuses on domestic violence and the stages of an abusive relationship and how difficult it is to accept and recognize them, knowing that I propose an experiential exhibition, which is essentially a safe haven that is created through the principles of trauma-informed design, and its goal is to promote a sense of safety and self-identity. For my target audience, primary would be unaware and aware victims of domestic violence or DV, secondary would be the supporters of those, and third would be general public. My venue would be the Bellevue Hospital Center, more specifically the ambulatory care facility. I chose this site because within the hospital there's actually a comprehensive child and adult victims services unit, so I thought it would work well with my target audience. My client would be the New York Women's Foundation. Their mission is to break down barriers and facilitate conversations at a deep level. Within this organization, there's a group called the Circle of Sisters, which is essentially a network that supports communities' solutions and are focused on ending gender-based violence and promoting the healing of survivors. Some goals, creating a platform for dialogue, survivor stories, victim experiences, at various stages of DV, getting that control back, having a support system. At the very beginning of stages of my project, I developed this diagram that is essentially the journey of a typical DV case from beginning to end, which would be this is your collateral at the beginning, ending at a place for second and seventh chances, and these translated almost seamlessly into my actual activities. The big idea of this whole exhibition would be empowerment, to give these women a platform to gain back their power. They'll be encouraged to confront their fears and take back from the abuser by learning about the stages and signs of DV. Each space is designed to evoke a different emotion for the visitor, and I have divided up the spaces into two sides, the right side being an area that focuses on making the visitor feel uncomfortable, and the left side making the visitor feel comfortable. To design the space, I use trauma-informed design, meaning natural light, warm interiors, biophilia, rest spaces, all these aspects that make the space welcoming for people who have experienced trauma. And a piece of this that was very important to my design were these curves that actually symbolize the emotional journey of the victims. When I had to design this poster, I knew I wanted that duality between the pain and this rebirth that the victims have gone through and want to go through. So the blue background is that pain, symbolizes that pain, and then the silhouette of that woman crying that is being held up and being put back together by this community of women or other individuals that are helping her get through this, and behind her this flower that is trying to represent that rebirth that she is trying to experience. And then the circles are representing the Circle of Sisters, and once again this community that is helping her be brought back together. I wanted the space to be very welcoming to everyone and anyone, so I designed content warnings. So the system would have 8 flowers for the 8 spaces in the exhibition, and each flower is a flower that survives under harsh conditions, just like these women that are surviving under their own harsh conditions. So each space would be represented by a different sensitivity level. The way I wanted to create exposure for this exhibition would be through social media, my client's website, and a hotline QR codes in bathrooms. The first thing the visitor would encounter would be directional signage. So on the signage would also be these QR codes the visitor could scan, and up would come up a visitor questionnaire. And these questions are very simple questions, just getting the visitor to be introduced to domestic violence and get them to start thinking about what it is. The visitor can choose to answer or not answer. It is completely anonymous if they do choose to answer. And it's just also just preparing them to what's to come if they do decide to enter the exhibition. Like I said, the spaces are divided into 2, so this would be the right side, which is meant to make the visitor feel uncomfortable. There's a total of 5 areas in this space. I will be talking about 3 today. The first one being my actions are your mistakes. This is the very first introduction to domestic violence for the visitor, and I wanted to do that through objects and audio, so the visitor is able to interact with these objects. These are everyday objects that to someone who has not experienced this type of trauma would just be a vase or a chair, but to a visitor who has, it is very triggering and can cause a lot of emotion. But I wanted the visitor to read about them and understand that double meaning to these objects and really create the empathy towards the victim or any victim. Moving on to this is your collateral. This space is along the same lines, but instead of objects, it is audio. So under these domes, the visitor could stand underneath and just listen to sounds, everyday sounds such as footsteps or a clock ticking. Once again, sounds that to someone who has not experienced domestic violence or any type of trauma are just sounds, but to a victim, they're very triggering. And once again, the idea was to put the visitor in the shoes of the victim even for a few minutes and have them experience even that little bit of anxiety and discomfort that victims experience on a daily basis and create that empathy between the two. Is there a way out? This talks about crossroads. A lot of the times there's a lot of judgment behind domestic violence and how easy, quote unquote easy, it is to leave a toxic abusive relationship, and that is not the case. Almost all the time there is reasons behind women not leaving their abuser, such as kids, legal situations, whatever the case may be. So this talks about that. The visitor would sit down and drop the phone and talk to a pre-recorded audio video of real life stories of women that are being told by actors. And the actor will take them through their story, and at certain points of it there will be crossroads where the visitor can give their input and say what they think would be the right decision, and at the very end the recording will let the visitor know what they actually did and the reasoning behind why they made the choices that they made, and the visitor will be able to reflect and understand that no matter what crossroad they would take, it is always going to be difficult, and it's always going to be something that is not done one and done. So once again, creating that empathy, creating that understanding that these things are not easy. Next would be righting their wrongs. Now we're moving on to the left side, where it's more of a space that's supposed to make the visitor feel comfortable. In this space, the visitor would go into these phone booths, pick up the phone, and be able to just vent or voice whatever it is that they have never been able to say out loud. The action of speaking up is the hardest part for victims, because speaking up means it's real, and accepting that is the hardest part. So the idea is to do that. They can choose to either make it recorded, or make it completely anonymous where the mic is off and you're just speaking. And these can also, whatever they decide to say, could also be sent to Circle of Sisters or another organization that could help. But once again, the main idea is just for them to talk. So once they are done doing that, they can actually leave a voicemail message for the next visitor to come in. It could be words of encouragement. It can be a hotline number that they are aware of and they would like to share this information with someone else. And once they exit, they can do the same thing with these little cards on the outside where it's leave one, take one. They're leaving some encouragement, taking some encouragement, or a hotline, or whatever the case may be. And it's this anonymous interaction between the victims that is trying to be created. And once again, being part of this community and starting to feel that they are not alone. For us, this one is a group activity, and this is talking about those resilient moments that we forget about. A lot of times we forget how strong we are and how much we've been through already. And I think remembering those moments is really, really helpful in a moment where once again, they find themselves in a situation that is difficult. So the visitors will be asked to reflect on a moment where they were resilient and translate that onto a piece of cloth in any way they would want, whether it's a sketch, a poem, a drawing, And then these would all be collected and stitched together into one quilt. The quilt will signify that community, that safety net, and it would be displayed by the entrance so the visitor can come back again and see their little piece of cloth becoming part of this community. Lastly, a place for second and seventh chances. I say 7 because that is the number of times women go back to their abuser, and I wanted that to be not in a bad way but in a good way, something to remember that no matter how many chances it takes, they will always be able to find a safe space here. So this would be a guided meditation where they will be able to reflect on their own experiences. And afterwards they can write a love letter to themselves, which they can actually leave at this space, and that will signify leaving that past experience behind at this exhibition and leaving, and knowing that they're going to find better and they're going to find help. The post-visit activity, like I mentioned, would be them just coming back and seeing this piece of cloth. These would be switched out weekly, and that gives the visitor a second chance to come back and hopefully be able to feel ready to speak up and find that help. All throughout the exhibition, there will be break rooms. These are spaces that the visitor can step out into and reflect, breathe, cry, whatever is needed. The exhibition will be completely free flow, so you can enter and exit from wherever you would like. And yes, so at this space they can reflect, and they can also find a docent from the Circle of Sisters and speak with them, and if they feel ready, they can find that help that they have been looking for and needing. I would like to collaborate with Hunt's Honey, which is a small self-care brand that is created by women survivors in Baltimore. So each piece looks like what it is, a lip balm or an ointment, but behind the sticker on the lip balm would actually be a hotline number hidden. Same with the ointment. Underneath of the cap there would be a hotline number hidden. These are just very subtle, discreet ways that the visitor not only gets reminded that this is all about self-care and doing it for themselves and loving themselves, but also reminded that they're not alone, and they're given this item that is helpful, and once again a reminder that they have this community behind them backing them up. And a full circle moment for them. All the money that is being given to this company is being given to the women survivors, essentially. So it's very much a full circle moment. Thank you so much.